Now let's think about token financing here. And by the way, I could also say in this particular, for this one, there's Modigliani Miller applies. You can also use debt financing, same thing. Now, but what is token financing? Now, in token financing, the general idea, and this is for these utility tokens in particular, is that you sell future output. Now, how do you sell future output? What does that actually mean? Well, there's two approaches, at least, that we could think of. The first one is that you sell already units of output. Right? So think about this as similar to a quadcopter that you sell ahead of time. So this is what we refer to as an output field pre-sale. The way you do this is you sell a number of tokens, and then once you know what the demand is, you produce a certain quantity queue, and then you receive, you issue this to people that you receive you don't receive revenue. Basically what you do is you keep the revenue from the token sale minus what you have to pay for the production of this quantity queue. And the other way to do it is what we refer to as revenue sharing. And what you do there is you sell a certain fraction of tokens, then you pick the quantity that you ultimately would produce, and then you require then you basically share the revenue with the remaining token holders. So now let's look at the implications here for the production function, because the interesting question that we ask is how much will the entrepreneur actually produce? So now let's think about this, right? The entrepreneur, when they issue a certain number of tokens, when the demand is very low, they will earn nothing, right? And so what they therefore, so that's a zero case. If the demand is sufficiently high, which is larger than the amount of tokens that you have, so then they have to find the quantity Q such that they maximize the income that they would receive from that quantity minus what they've already sold in the form of the tokens. So if you look at this maximization problem, what that really means is that your marginal demand function or the production function shifts out to the right. And so what that means is that you're now producing a larger quantity. Now, why are you doing this? Well, you don't do this because the entrepreneur does actually not internalize the effect of an extra unit of output on the token value for the token holders. So in other words, there is an extra, so the point is that there's a cost which is borne by the token holders and not by the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur merely has to pay the marginal cost, and that leads to a distortion. Now let's look at revenue sharing. With revenue sharing, what happens is that the marginal revenue curve is tilted downward. Why? Well, because the entrepreneur has to share the revenue but bear the full cost. And so in contrast to the profit, where basically it's a linear transformation of the entire equation, this is only a reduction in the amount of revenue that you can create. And now what that means, as a entrepreneur, you actually pick a smaller quantity that you produce, simply because you don't actually stand to benefit from producing more, because you have to bear the marginal cost. So in other words, the result of revenue sharing agreements is underproduction. And that's, by the way, a very similar result to Schott and Leandris.